So Sally gave me kind of an agenda and some ways to begin, and I am at the Capitol Complex. Our other three members are Zooming in remotely. There is a quorum, so the business that we need to conduct, we can do. Um, we need to review the criteria for the Regent candidates that will be published and used. It'll be used for the applicants to look at it and see what we're looking at, and it will be used by our CAC membership when we are interviewing candidates and we're asking the questions, thinking about the criteria and the attributes that we have identified as desirable and good and important for our Regent candidates. So there was recently, so Sally, you're saying we should review that document first or just well,
the committee meeting?
Oh, okay, yeah. So there was recently the Board of Regents Governance Committee met, and Senator Clausen and I attended the meeting. It's on YouTube. Have any of you had the chance to see it? Yes, no?
Yeah.
I did catch part of it.
You saw part of it? I can tell you that Senator Clausen and I knew the meeting was going to be held, and we knew that they were going to discuss criteria. And so we thought it would just be good to be present in the meeting. We thought we'd sit in the back row and maybe they'd have a question for us. And if you saw part of the meeting, you know that the governance committee chair said, "We're so glad to have you guys here. Could you just sit in the middle?" And we said, "No." We said, "Yes." And they asked us questions, and they said, "Do you want to start out by summarizing?" And Chairman Clausen said, "Well, Barb, go ahead." And I said, we were caught a little off guard, but it was great. It was fine. And we both made our comments about serving on the RCAC and the things that we thought were important. And it was very much a conversation with the governance committee and with us about the things that we thought were important. So if you'd seen it, there would be maybe some questions or thoughts. Should we talk about the meeting a little bit? Observations about it or how it went?
You might want to talk about the feedback that was shared regarding the criteria.
Yep. You can help me with that, with some of it, but largely I will say, particularly Regent Mayeron said that she felt like the criteria was well written and well done. She didn't have a lot of feedback on the document, and you could tell that she'd spent some time with it. So that was good advice. I know we in the last rotation, our committee spent a fair amount of time kind of being careful with the details of the criteria. I think the message that Regent Mayeron and others said, there are some very specific hard skills that it's good to pay attention to, that it's nice to have on the Board of Regents, but very important is a sense of collaboration, a sense of critical thinking, cooperation, respect for your other regents, to really meaningfully get work done together. And I think we've all been on committees where we know that that's true. So that's a little bit more difficult sometimes to ascertain when you're doing an interview or you're asking for references about people. But those were skills that were called out as being particularly important. So that was good to hear, although they did say an inventory of hard skills would be a kind of a good thing. So we'll talk about that kind of outside of this committee if it's something we should do. But just to remind people, I can tell you I'm on other nonprofit boards where we do that inventory of hard skills, because you don't always know enough about someone's full career they could have a number of things that it's not evident when you first meet them. And or as time moves on, there are hard skills that it's nice to have that maybe weren't important 5 or 10 years ago. I think of all the technology stuff. It's, having people that understand that now is pretty important. So, let's see. Do you guys have comments about the criteria? If you'd seen what the Regent said, they really didn't have any big hard flags for us of, you guys have to really work or revise this. They said it was they liked it. They said it was good. And it's important that in this committee, just to say that we are reviewing this criteria, we will recommend any changes that need to be made. And if we approve it, then that will be, it's important that we can publish it when we publish applications, notice of applications for Regent applicants, that they can look at that. So, right? Any comments? Thank you,
Yes, I
Matt.
have one, Chair Barb. And yeah, nice to see everyone.
Remember Matt?
So if I'm recalling, I did watch it actually, when it got posted. The assignment specific to the criteria, like the request, if I'm recalling, was like, to get the chair to come before it. But I was there an emphasis on like in them, and I think you alluded to it, the analysis or the skills that they see lacking that they would want to bring to us.
I don't know that they
Calling
said,
it kind of, yeah, like, and it seemed very informal, but it referenced
was.
the tradition of the chair coming and in the spirit of the criteria, like having them bring to the committee at the appropriate time, like what specific criteria that aren't contained on the paper per se, but are important in this go around. Am I recalling this in some fashion, or am I just
Yep.
kind
That's correct, Matt. And
Okay.
they will be at the meeting on Tuesday to present the various qualities, skill
Oh,
sets that are
great.
outside the general
you.
selection criteria, are kind of more general, that are applicable to like applicable to a number of people, where the specific skill sets, like, I don't know if you saw the meeting where Regent Mayron talked about finance or healthcare or higher ed skills. So they'll bring that piece to the meeting next week, to the full council.
but it's not something that goes on that we need to incorporate to our document, right? Right.
Yes, understood. I just, yeah.
Sure. But she-
Referencing, watching that hearing and thinking about criteria and hearing that we have a representative from the U also here, just getting everybody on the same page, like.
Perfect. Thank you. I agree.
Yeah,
I
thank you.
appreciate it. Yeah, bravo. Yeah, no. And it is great that Regent Marin and I was saying, in my experience, and because I've gone through this several times now, the different board chairs, Regent board chairs, it's been a little uneven. Sometimes they pay a lot of attention to helping us with this document and sometimes not so much. But I was encouraged. Regent Marin had definitely spent time with the document, thought about it. And I think what she will talk to us about when she comes to our meeting will be well thought out and appreciated. So again, if we have any questions for her, then, and the other thing that we'll say to the other members of our committee at large, our CAC at large, is to remind people that the Regent meetings are very accessible. YouTube is great. And some of those skill sets about collaboration and cooperation, and those harder to sort of, how do you exactly quantify it? We should all be watching occasionally, not all the time, but watching occasionally those Regent meetings to get our own sense of how they work together. Okay.
To the criteria.
So the criteria was significantly revised in the 2018-19 cycle. And Sally caught this, bravo. She makes a suggestion in the first paragraph to change his, her to their. So with all of our attention these days, it's so not uncommon for people to talk about their pronouns. There is widely acceptable. So it might be sort of in the spirit of that pronoun sensitivity. And then, sure. Oh, yes. Please do.
I'm just going to share the criteria so you guys can see it.
So see there in the first paragraph, where it said his/her,
Or you could just say and leadership team.
yeah, and leadership team. Yeah, so I explained, we could just take it out altogether. It's a minor tweak, but it's a tweak sensitive to, a lot of people's feelings today.
I think it's a wise thing to do.
Okay, thank you. I agree. So there's 16 criteria listed. I'm rereading them myself. I looked at them again before that last meeting and again today. And so a lot of the criteria are exactly those things: negotiate, build consensus, think strategically. And there isn't, you'll notice there is not, and very intentionally, there's not a thing that says we need a regent who is skilled in executive level finance, or a regent who's, a lawyer negotiate, some of those very specific skills. For a lot of good reasons. I mean, the one thing, as a reminder, we've got, there are 12 regents, and we are required to have one regent from each congressional district and 4 at-large regents, and one of those at-large has to be a student regent. So we do have that mandate for that geographic diversity, but we don't have a mandate for any other professional skill set diversity. It's not required that we have somebody with judgeship experience, although I think it's served Regent Marion very well. Ed, did you want to say something? No.
No.
Okay, so it's just a good reminder for applicants to look at this, and it is a good reminder for all of us when we are interviewing and voting on candidates that we would recommend to the legislature for their election of regents. I know. So would somebody like to make a motion to approve the criteria with that one?
I will make that motion.
Thank you, Senator Rarick.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Ed.
Just had a question.
Okay, great.
Just curious of all the criteria, just observing. There's only one that really has like an example. And I'm not advocating for more examples. Is there?
Which one are you talking about?
12.
So that was brought to us by the board, and it's because most people think in this day and age, like, people get tech, but there were issues where they wanted to kind of convey to candidates that they will be getting their materials through an online portal, that they're not going to get hard copies of things and need to be able to access that. That's why that one has an example.
Yeah, thank you for that context. I would even then just take it a little further and be like, why be specific to that and leave it more open-ended, and the criteria of assuming regents are technologically adept at, look at yesterday's news and wonder how many regents were following what was happening on the campus in like real time, where you could be seeing this stuff, and not just pigeonholing them. Do you know how to use a board portal, but more holistically, and leaving that criteria, just like the other ones don't have specific pieces.
I don't know. What do you guys think? I mean, so you're saying that we should come up with other more concrete examples, or we
No,
should?
no.
Delete
I
that.
would be in favor of removing that specifically, because I think it limits the thinking about a regent's technological capabilities that they would be bringing to the board.
I was just consulting with Marlo from the board office, and she said that makes sense.
Yeah.
As well. So do you want to add that to the motion, to strike that parentheses?
I would offer it as a friendly and hope that the senator would maybe consider it as a kind one.
I guess it doesn't matter to me. I don't see a problem with it there or a problem taking it out. So I mean, if that's what everybody wants, we can definitely amend the motion and do that.
I make a second to amend it.
Okay. So we're just striking the part that's in parentheses, okay. Okay,
Thank you.
yeah, I think that's good continuity for our 16 requirements. Okay, all in favor? Revolt? Okay,
I can say,
Aye.
aye. So we're doing the first paragraph change and we're taking out the parenthesis paragraph. Awesome. Wonderful. Okay. All right. So let's talk about the application form. Sure, go ahead.
so this is, as you recall, it's an online web form. So this is just kind of a screen grab. This isn't live or anything yet because you are reviewing it. So it's really only been updated to show the seats that are open this cycle. And then, but everything else remains the same. So if you wanted to look into if you had questions on the application form itself, and then I think probably separately get into the essay questions. So really the only language that's different is the position sought.
I don't see anything that stands out as something that needs to change.
So, and, you know, and thinking about that, I will say the only thing, I didn't think about what I would say to make that any different, but I know in the past we've had conversation about people who don't check two boxes when they qualify for more than one.
Correct. That's why we tried to clarify that more last cycle. So in the parentheses, it says, at-large positions are open to applicants for all districts. And we say, check the box or boxes. Because, technically the student at large could be eligible for all three.
Right. And or someone in District 5 could be eligible for at large as well. So a
Right.
lot of people, and some people just only, where does it say box or boxes?
It used to say box, doesn't anymore. Oh yeah, positions. It has position in parentheses in the first sentence.
Check the region positions. Okay. Hey guys, is that calling it out enough? It is, I think so. Are you guys okay with that? There have been times when people have, they'll check congressional District 5, but then they're like, well, yeah, I would like to be considered for.
I recall that we've done that during the interview process too, where we've mentioned to them that, are you interested in, if you're not gonna
Right.
maybe get this one in the other seat that you're eligible for. So we can do that as a board as well if they
Okay.
haven't done it.
I
Yeah,
think
because-
that's a good idea.
Because sometimes I think they don't know that they could check more than one box, right? So, yeah, I think we can always make sure that whether they want to make themselves eligible for the other potential seats too.
Yeah. Because I mean, it does say regent positions, which somebody with critical thinking would understand that says they can apply for more than one, whichever ones they qualify for. But I think it will be incumbent on us as board members in the interviews to remind them if they haven't, that they might. I mean, I think we've even gone ahead and put people in other buckets when we recognize that they're eligible for them. So, anything else about the questions? Any changes? mean, I can tell you from my reviewing that, several, this is my second term as being a member of the RCAC, so I've gone through this more than once. And we've made it longer so that we encourage people to list as many employers as they think are beneficial to the conversation in their application, that they are not limited to one or two. I think in the interest of brevity, sometimes on the online application, we had just room for one or two. And I remember one candidate who's, if you'd gone back just one more employer, was very interesting experience. And we're like, why didn't you tell us about that? And he said, well, you asked for the last two. So we're trying to, it looks longer than they aren't required to go back that far, but they are given the opportunity to tell us as much about themselves as they would like. We didn't want it to feel limited. So it looks, when I look at it, I think it's, and then they say, additional if you would like to add it. And at some point we can go back entirely too far. Again, back to applicants and critical thinking, they should apply their own judgment and not sell themselves short if there's something in their background that we think would be important. So other things, things that I know that we sometimes look at is whether or not they make their information public, what they, how willing are they to share. So applicants just need to be very attentive to what they tell us so that we respect their preferences. I'm looking. Anything else, Sally, that you would say about it? Help me.
Do you guys discuss the questions when I stepped out?
Not yet.
Okay.
No, we were just talking about, in the interview process that we can be sure and clarify if there's any confusion about how many seats they might be applying for. And I was telling, because it seems to me like there's a lot of room for a lot of organizations and a lot of history. And I do recall one candidate that said, well, you asked for two and I gave you two, but golly, I would have had, there was another part of their education or their employment experience that would have been interesting. So we made it enough room. So we can move on to the question part, because I think that has gotten a lot of conversation in this committee before. So the essay questions. What do you think, committee members? Any changes? I can tell you in the last time we reviewed this document, 2 years ago, essay question number 3 gave us a lot of conversation. I mean, we just expanded it to say, tell us. I mean, here's ideas of finance, safety, so many things. And or do you have anything else you want to add to it? So it's, I would kind of say we primed the pump to say, think about these things, because these are things that the RCAC would want to hear about. Is there something that you think we're missing?
I kind of like that you don't put too many things on there so that it leaves them the space to tell us 3 things that they think are important instead of us leading everything.
Right. Thank you. I agree. Yeah. Anything else? All right. So move on to attestations. Again, another question, a section of the application that in the past gets a fair amount of attention. So it's been carefully thought of and carefully worded, and it's still probably not perfect. I don't have advice on changing any of it. What do you guys? You've read them, and I think you've read them, probably sitting through candidates' applications. You've looked at what candidates have replied, and it creates a number of questions.
So if I can interject, Barb, so these, before we revamped the form into an online form, these were like 3 separate essay question forms, and it just didn't make sense to be essays because somebody would type yes or no. And so that's just kind of captures that, read the code of conduct, yes. you know, all those little things. It's just easier from the online form perspective.
Thinking about it, are there any other questions you think that we should ask? Is this enough to give them kind of a open opportunity to tell the RCAC about themselves and tell the legislators when they look at their applications?
I think it's sufficient.
Oh, thank you. Okay,
I mean, that's my opinion. I don't know what anybody else may think.
you're here to share your opinion and we appreciate it.
I would agree with that. So, I mean, do you need a motion from us to accept it as it is?
I think so.
Motion made.
I'll second it.
Let's vote. We approve the document?
Aye.
Aye.
So
Anything else?
last is just nothing really to do with this. Oh, but the last piece of information,
Yeah, please.
it's just this what to expect in the region election process and beyond. And this is just a document that was developed to help candidates understand the region process they're entering from the beginning. So they kind of see what's going on. Just really update is just, it's pretty fleshed out, but just will be updated with dates. There's also a section that the Board of Regents office provides, so they can give some perspective to candidates, like what to expect once you're there, and the workload. But this is just, there's no action needed on this,
Right.
but
I will say, it's a great document. It's great. And it's all online as well. So if any of you are being, somebody's asking you about applying, because we should all be, good stewards of the process and talking to people who, who knows, who might ask you, gee, tell me more about being a regent. It's great. It's online. You can find it. I don't even remember how it's titled, but if you just Googled and looked for U of M Board of Regents application process there, it will link through to the what to expect and a lot of good information. So I think it's terrific. I'm glad to see it. So what else? Is that it? So those are the important things, those two documents, gentlemen, that we needed to review and approve. I would say it's terrific to see you here. I know I served on this committee before, and I'm going to tell you all that having done it once now, you'll kind of know what to expect and the kind of conversation we have. So I'm sure I'm looking at the next chairman of this committee. It's just not sure which one of you will do it.
I do have a question that obviously isn't on part of the agenda today.
Okay.
But something to throw out, and I just thought of this today. When somebody leaves or applies for a position, sometimes there's a survey done. I wonder whether it'd be advantageous for us to ask the candidates that have applied at the end of the process whether there's something we can do better. What they thought how the process went. Was it too intrusive? Was it not intrusive enough? Was it fair?
Yeah.
I think it would be a good learning and constructive criticism. We think we're doing everything as well as we can, but it would be good to know from their perspective what we could do better.
I think that's a great idea. I will talk to Greg about that and see if, separate from our conversation today, if we could maybe come up with some sort of brief, even Survey Monkey thing that totally voluntary, but if any of the candidates, applicants, or, wanted to give us that feedback. The question I would love to ask them all is how did it happen that you applied to be a University of Minnesota Regent? And I think we get a wide variety of answers. Just generally, if I'm talking to someone, I ask them that question because some people are clearly either involved with our legislative process or have been involved in our alumni association or higher ed or something, and they know about it. But I, over the years, have talked to people who have known very little about it and really don't understand that it's open to, Minnesotans, that if they meet the criteria and they want to apply, please do. So I'm just curious because as advocates for it, I know we've probably all encouraged people to apply and known people that we think would make great regents, but I don't know how they all happen to decide to do that. We had one applicant who made it fairly far through the process, once who saw as a matter of course, the RCAC puts on, actually Sally does this for us. There's something in the newspaper about the Board of Regents application process that people can sign on to and do. And there was a gentleman who said, oh, I'm going to do that. So without any other kind of experience or prompting, and he had a very interesting, he didn't end up becoming elected, but he added to the process, that's for sure. So I have a question or two myself, Ed, that I would like on that survey. And I think some of the questions that you just suggested would be interesting. So
Yeah, I think from the perspective of, I gotta imagine there's been candidates that have gotten through the first process, and then it got to the phase where they have to go to the legislature and have these meetings. I'm sure it's a daunting task for somebody that didn't know that was part of the process and the extent and the intricacies of it, right? So, it would be good to know what some of these candidates feel the process could be changed, or whether it could be adjusted, or whether they didn't realize that was part of it. I don't know, but it would be good to know. And again, any constructive criticism is always positive from my vision, my view in how we can improve things.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, because some of it is just the perception is their reality. I'll tell you what, in my experiences, I over the years talked to legislators who have been the people that these candidates need to get on their calendar to have a conversation with them, are very receptive to talking to the candidates. I haven't ever had a candidate say, gee, it's just, I can't, they won't make time for me. They make time, our legislators, I believe they take it in, seriously, and they do a good job of making themselves available to the candidates.
And we assume that, right? I would think they do.
And I try to coordinate with especially the members of the higher ed committee to make it convenient that we can all provide one day where the candidate come in and go to both, get to as many of us as possible, to make that easier for them. Because if they got to come in 10 different times to meet with 10 different legislators, that's not going to work.
No. So. Well, and especially again, because we have the geographic requirement, everybody doesn't have good proximity to the capital. So as you say, 10 different days coming in from Fergus Falls or something would be difficult. So, but I think
this Zoom stuff has made it a lot better for people.
Oh yeah. Yeah, but if you're a candidate trying to meet with legislators, there's nothing like a face-to-face, Senator.
We appreciate the face-to-face more than anything, but if all you get is a Zoom, that's better than nothing.
That's better. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Ed. I'll talk to Greg about that, and maybe we can come up with something that you can help us with. We could kind of try a little survey. That would be a good idea.
Be happy to.
All right. I have no further business. Does anyone have anything else they would maybe like to discuss? No? Do we need a motion to adjourn? We don't need a motion to adjourn. We can just say thank you very much for your time. Lovely to see you all. We'll see you soon at our larger meeting.
Next week.
Yep. All right. Thanks, guys.